Chemotherapy for peritoneal mesothelioma. There are 4 ways that doctors use chemo to treat peritoneal mesothelioma, but which one works best? Today, I will show you what the 4 different approaches are and which one helps some patients live 5 times longer than expected. Hi, I'm Deborah from Surviving Mesothelioma, and for nearly 20 years, we have helped thousands of patients and families make sense of their treatment options. We've also worked with the longest living survivor of peritoneal mesothelioma in the world, Paul Kraus. Chemotherapy uses drugs that kill cancer cells and stop them from dividing. And when it's successful, it can make the cancer more manageable, or it can stop it from spreading further in the body. But there are different approaches to chemo, and they don't all work the same way. So let's have a look at a few of them. Starting with number 1, heated chemo. With peritoneal mesothelioma, doctors may use a procedure called CRS and HIPEC. CRS stands for cytoreductive surgery, and that is an operation where a surgeon will go in and remove as many visible tumors as they can. And sometimes they'll combine the surgery with HIPEC, and that stands for hyperthermic intraperitoneal chemotherapy, and it uses liquid chemotherapy drugs that have been warmed up and sometimes as hot as 107 degrees, about the temperature of a hot tub. And after the CRS surgery is done, the surgeon uses a catheter to circulate that heated chemo into the abdomen, and that lasts for about an hour or 2. The goal of HIPEC is to kill cancer cells that the surgeon couldn't see. And it also circulates chemo just where it's needed and not throughout the entire body. And research shows that it works for some patients. So a 2024 study in the Central European Journal of Medicine looked at 15 patients with peritoneal mesothelioma who got CRS and HIPEC, which is the surgery that is, again, followed by the heated chemo that I just mentioned. And after 2 years, 9 out of 10 patients were still alive. Not only that, but 7 out of 10 lived for at least 5 years. Well, how does that compare to regular chemo? Well, it depends on the patient, but in general, people with peritoneal mesothelioma tend to live for only about 1 year if they only get standard chemo by itself. So in this study, surgery and HIPEC helped most of the patients live 5 times longer than expected. But some patients with peritoneal mesothelioma can live much longer. And again, for example, Paul Kraus, his doctors gave him only 6 months to live. But Paul went on to live 27 years, more than 50 times longer than expected. Paul did not use HIPEC because it didn't exist when he was diagnosed, but he does share everything he did do to survive in his book, Surviving Mesothelioma. And you can get a free copy by clicking the link in the description. Okay, let's move on to number 2, supportive chemo. After surgery and HIPEC, doctors might also recommend a different type of chemo called supportive systemic chemotherapy. Now, this one doesn't involve any surgery. Instead, the chemo drugs are given through an IV after the patient has already had HIPEC. And it's called systemic because it doesn't just go into one part of your body like the heated chemo does. Instead, the chemo drugs go into your bloodstream and they travel throughout your body, and that way they can reach the cancer cells wherever they might be. But why would doctors use it on someone who already had the heated chemo? Well, because HIPEC doesn't always get rid of the cancer, so it can come back after a while. Systemic chemo helps keep it in check. So it's really 3 steps. First, the surgery removes the visible tumors, and then the heated chemo kills some of the cancer cells that couldn't be removed during the surgery, and then finally, the systemic chemo slows down the cancer that is left behind after the surgery. So this combo was studied in a 2024 article in the Annals of Surgical Oncology, and they looked at 154 patients who got the CRS surgery and HIPEC, but only about half of the patients got systemic chemo afterwards. And the patients had better survival if they got the systemic chemo as well, compared to the ones who didn't get the extra chemo. And more of them survived for at least 5 years. So you can think of systemic chemo as the teammate of HIPEC. It's not the star player, but the support may help survival. What if surgery isn't an option? That brings us to number 3, systemic chemo alone. When peritoneal mesothelioma patients can't get surgery, their doctors may still recommend systemic chemo. Okay, not the heated one that's given directly in the abdomen, but the one that's given with an IV. So how well does it work without surgery? Well, according to a 2024 review in the Journal of the National Comprehensive Cancers Network, only about 1 in 5 patients with peritoneal mesothelioma had a tumor response from systemic chemo. Okay, that means their tumors shrank or had less cancer in the body after getting the chemo. Okay, in other words, 4 out of 5 patients did not see their tumor shrink. And for the patients who can't have surgery, systemic chemo typically gives them a survival of about 12 to 18 months. So it's not a cure, but for some patients, it can still slow the cancer's growth and keep symptoms more manageable. All right, number 4, aerosol chemo. Okay, there's also new kinds of chemo that are being tested. One is called PIPAC, and that stands for Pressurized Intraperitoneal Aerosol Chemotherapy. Instead of a liquid, this one is a spray, and it's applied directly to the lining around the abdomen, right where the cancer starts. It takes a surgery to apply the spray, but it is not a major one like the CRS surgery that I described earlier. Instead, it's a laparoscopic surgery, which uses small cut and tiny instrument. And because of that, doctors can use it more regularly without putting the patient through a big procedure. Because it's newer, we don't have as much research on PIPAC, but a 2022 study in the medical journal's Annals of Surgical Oncology looked at 26 patients with peritoneal mesothelioma who were treated with PIPAC. And it found that PIPAC helped shrink tumors in some patients. It even helped some of them become eligible for surgery. Now, this is a small study, so we still can't say how many patients might benefit from PIPAC, but it's encouraging to know that doctors and scientists are still finding new ways to use chemo to help people with peritoneal mesothelioma. Okay, so what can patients do with all of this information? Well, if I was diagnosed with peritoneal mesothelioma, I would consider speaking with my doctors about my options. And I might ask questions like, is surgery and HIPEC an option in my case? Are there specialized treatment centers that might be able to help? And are there any clinical trials for PIPAC or any new types of chemo that I might qualify for? And remember Paul Kraus? Again, he lived 27 years after being diagnosed with peritoneal mesothelioma, and his doctors only gave him 6 months to live. Every day, patients tell us they wish they had found Paul's information sooner, but you really don't have to wait because he put it all in his book, Surviving Mesothelioma. And we will overnight you a free copy. And it has every treatment, it's got every supplement, it's got every decision that helped him become the longest living mesothelioma survivor on record. All right, so just click the link in the description below. We will send you your free copy straight to your door. Stay informed, stay strong, and never lose hope. I'm gonna see you in the next video.